I beg to move this House do now adjourn.
The question is this House do now adjourn. And Snelgrove.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I'm pleased today to be able to bring this adjournment debate to the House, as it covers very serious questions about Swindon Borough Council and the Wi-Fi scheme. In November 2009, Swindon Borough Council announced an initiative with two very newly formed Swindon-based businesses, Digital City UK and a London-based and Isle of Man registered company, Aquovia, an ambitious project which would deliver free limited internet link to all who signed up, alongside free paid packages aimed at businesses, homes and roving users. A third company, Avidity Consulting, is also involved in the initiative. Mr Deputy Speaker, I want to make sure it's understood that the issue under debate today is not Wi-Fi itself, but probity, the behaviour of ruling Conservative councillors, and as a consequence of this behaviour, the behaviour of officers, accountability to the public, and the lack of effective scrutiny procedures on Swindon Borough Council. I am very grateful to my constituents and those of my right honourable friend for North Swindon, who have spent many hours investigating Digital City and its connections with the council, for they have provided a good deal of the factual information I'll be putting forward to you today. In particular, I want to thank Jeff Reed and members of the Talkswindon website, particularly the blogger known as Commodore, and Chris Watts, a local businessman whose involvement came about through his anger at the restrictive practices adopted by the council. But let me state quite clearly at the outset that I support universal internet access, I support innovation, and I support local councils working with local businesses. However, neither I nor the government support excessive secrecy, and I believe that Swindon Borough Council should have been open and transparent and prepared to engage with all on these issues. Sadly, it has done exactly the opposite. As the Prime Minister said this morning, superfast broadband is the electricity of the digital age. It must be for all, not just for some. We have already decided to commit public funding to ensure existing broadband reaches nearly every household in Britain by 2012. And in his speech, he gave details of how Labour will ensure superfast broadband does reach every home in the UK, creating thousands of new jobs in the process. Labour's plans will see universal access to broadband by 2012, with 90% of UK households with access to next generation broadband by 2017. So, Mr Deputy Speaker, Labour's support and my support for universal access of high-speed broadband, not a two-speed scheme as envisaged by Digital City, should not be doubted. Whilst this is the major issue, there are many other issues raised by my constituents about the Wi-Fi project, which damages this aspiration in their eyes. For example, whether the best technology has been employed, the effect of the Council's secretive deal with a newly established company on other well-established SMEs in Swindon, and the health implications of a wireless network. Swindon Borough Council has provided a loan of £450,000 on commercial terms to Digital City to enable it to create the Wi-Fi network across Swindon. In return for that loan, the Council has received a 40% equity stake in the company. If the loan's repaid in 2 years, Avidity Consulting has an option to purchase 5% of the company's shares from the council for £1. Avidity Consulting already has a 25% stake in the company. The other shareholder is Aquovia Limited, which holds the remaining 35% of the company. Digital City is intending to install wireless internet across the entirety of the Borough of Swindon. Both Digital City and Avidity Consulting were incorporated on the 14th of August 2009 as off-the-shelf companies. They became active on the 21st and 22nd of September 2009, respectively. They have thus a negligible track record. Aquovia UK Limited was incorporated on the 13th of March 2009, appears to have become active on the 16th of September last year, and thus also has a limited track record. And according to a timeline produced for me on the 19th of March 2010 by the Chief Executive of Swindon Borough Council, for which I am grateful, discussions first commenced at officer level at the Council on the 19th of January 2009 with the instigator of the initiative, Ricky Hunt, members of Equovia and officers of the Council. According to the timeline, on 25th of June, Ricky Hunt presented an outline proposal to the leader and various members of the Cabinet. This consisted of the business idea, the level of investment that was being sought, and the potential level of return if the Council chose to invest. Subsequently, officers were asked to do some more detailed work in order for a funding proposition to be considered. From the 3rd to the 10th of July 2009, a financial plan and written outline business case was received from Ricky Hunt. And following this, Mr Deputy Speaker, a decision was taken by Rod Bluh, the Conservative leader of the Council, to deal with the proposal using a lead member briefing note. Crucially, this confined the formal consultation and decision-making to 2 councillors only, the leader, Councillor Bluh, and the lead member for Finance and Benefits, Councillor Mark Edwards. Both these councillors subsequently signed a Cabinet member briefing note in mid-October, following which officers were able to exercise substantial delegated powers. It meant that the proposals did not have to be discussed at an early stage in committee or be voted on by a larger group of councillors. The immediate consequence was that the councillors could ensure officers were able to use council powers to the advantage of Digital City and the Wi-Fi project. For example, a resolution made at full council earlier, specifically for rapid action to be taken on the town centre regeneration, was used to enable the loan of £450,000 to be made, and meant that the loan did not have to go through the normal council processes. And the requirement for a credit rating of the companies concerned under Treasury management rules was set aside, presumably because the companies were less than a year old and had no substantive credit history. Given the lack of corporate track record, the decision by Swindon Borough Council was made, and I quote, primarily on the track record of the key individuals concerned and on the basis that risks and rewards would be fairly apportioned. That was the minute of Swindon Borough Council scrutiny meeting from the 14th of December last year. Now, Mr Deputy Speaker, in a letter to me dated the 4th of March 2010, the Minister for Local Government detailed the background of EU procurement directives which set out the legal framework, the detailed procedures and the criteria for specification, selection and award of contracts above certain thresholds. She states, even below these thresholds, the EU treaty-based principles of non-discrimination, equal treatment, transparency, mutual recognition and proportionality apply. She goes on to comment that in most cases there should be a competitive procurement advertised. Swindon Borough Council asserts that because this is a loan of £450,000, it is not subject to the normal procurement rules, despite its own shareholdings and place on the board of Digital City. However, the Council itself is using the EU anti-competitive rules to prevent our local dial-a-ride from competing for council contracts to carry the disabled. And other councils, Mr Deputy Speaker, including Norfolk County Council, have published a tendering process for their Wi-Fi networks. Now, the cosiness of the relationships of those involved and the lack of external scrutiny whilst these were being set up should alarm all who are interested in local government probity. At the very least, it calls into question the judgment of those concerned, who should have been well aware that they would be called to account and would therefore need to put extra safeguards in place to protect themselves from suspicion, as their roles cross over so many times. And at worst, it obfuscates actions which gamble public money in untried companies with inexperienced and naive directors who had no sustainable business plan and were unprepared to answer serious and searching legitimate questions from other elected members, as well as local people.